2 years before any of this, you bought a $19 book on a whim. It sat on your nightstand for a month before you opened it. It didn't promise magic. It gave you one method. Name the target. Find the first domino. Move on it within 24 hours, no matter how small. You did it out of boredom more than belief. That decision is the only reason any of this exists. You have $25 million and nobody knows. Not your barber, not your neighbor, not the guy at the gym who spots you on bench press 3 mornings a week. You're not hiding anything. You're just ordinary on purpose. While everyone else chases the version of wealth you can photograph, you quietly built the version you can't. The number didn't arrive with a countdown. It arrived in a spreadsheet attachment on a Tuesday, sandwiched between a reminder to renew your car registration and a coupon email from a hardware store. No confetti. No phone call. Just you, standing in your kitchen, reheating leftover rice, glancing at a number that would change most people's entire personality. This is what $25 million actually looks like from the inside. It starts 9 years ago with a storage unit auction. Not a business plan, not a vision board, just a Saturday morning you almost didn't go to. You'd read about it online the night before, people bidding blind on abandoned units, no idea what's inside until the lock comes off. You showed up mostly out of boredom. You won a unit for $310 because nobody else wanted it. Inside were 3 broken treadmills, a box of Christmas decorations, and underneath a tarp, 11 sealed cases of a discontinued kitchen appliance still in retail packaging. You sold them online in 4 days for $2,200. That's the whole origin story. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a number that shouldn't have worked, working anyway. You went back the next month. Then the month after that. You learned which auction houses had lazy appraisers, and which ones actually checked what they were selling. You learned that most people bid on emotion and you could win on math. Within a year, you weren't attending auctions for treasure. You were attending them for inventory, treating it like a business because it quietly was one. By year 2, you'd stopped selling items one at a time. You built relationships with 3 regional resellers who bought in bulk, no negotiation, no haggling, just a standing arrangement that paid you 60 cents on every dollar of retail value, sight unseen. You didn't need to be clever anymore. You needed to be consistent. Consistency is the part nobody puts in the highlight reel. Your accountant's name is Priya. She's handled small business books for 14 years, mostly contractors and dentists, and one very anxious food truck owner. She does not impress easily. The first time you handed her a folder with your holdings inside, she read it in silence for almost 4 minutes, then looked up and said, "This is the most boring 7 figures I've ever seen." She meant it as an observation. You took it as the nicest thing anyone's ever said to you. Here's what the folder actually contains. 2 self-storage facilities in the Midwest, 42 units combined, bought at foreclosure prices when the previous owner defaulted during a rate hike. Combined, they clear $340,000 a year in net income. You've visited each facility twice. A laundromat you picked up for $61,000 from a man named Gerald, who was retiring after 26 years, and just wanted someone to keep the machines running. It nets $52,000 annually, and you've never had to fire an employee because you've never had one. A service company handles repairs. A local teenager handles the vacuuming. 12 billboard leases along 2 state highways, where you own the land underneath the sign, not the advertising on it. Each one pays between $600 and $1,100 a month in ground rent, on contracts that run 15 years with built-in increases. Some months you forget you own them at all. A regional pallet recycling operation you bought 4 years ago from an owner in his 60s, who was tired and had no children interested in taking it over. 8 employees. 1 box truck. Annual revenue just over $890,000. Thin margins, but the kind of business that never makes the news and never needs to. And roughly $9.4 million sitting quietly across index funds, treasury bonds, and a handful of dividend positions you rebalance twice a year, on a spreadsheet you built yourself in 2019, and have never once needed to redesign. Priya asks if you're planning to pivot into anything with more upside, maybe a tech investment, maybe commercial real estate with real growth potential. You tell her no. She nods the way people nod at an answer they respect, but don't fully understand. What she doesn't see is the logic underneath the boredom. Every asset in that folder solves a need that refuses to disappear. People need somewhere to store the things that don't fit in their house. People need clean clothes. Trucks need somewhere to haul pallets from warehouse to warehouse. Drivers on a highway see whatever's on that billboard whether they like it or not. None of it depends on a trend surviving. None of it can be disrupted by an app. There's a man at your gym who drives a lease payment disguised as a truck. Chrome everything, custom exhaust, the kind of vehicle that announces itself 2 blocks before it arrives. He talks about his portfolio the way some people talk about their fantasy football team, loudly, to whoever's within range. You drive a 2017 Honda CR-V with 88,000 miles and a check engine light you've been meaning to look at for 3 months. When he asks what you do, you tell him you own a couple of small businesses. Storage units, mostly. Some other stuff. You watch him do the math in real time. The truck. The CR-V. The word storage. He smiles politely and turns back toward the mirror. In his head, you've been filed away. Comfortable, maybe. Not worth explaining anything further to. That dismissal is worth more to you than anything else that happens at that gym all week. Because the moment someone underestimates you, they stop paying attention. And the moment they stop paying attention, you get to keep doing exactly what you've been doing. This isn't modesty. People assume stealth wealth is some enlightened detachment from material things. Maybe for some people it is. For you, it's simpler than that. It's a strategy. The ordinary life is armor, and you put it on every single morning without thinking about it, the same way you put on a seatbelt. Your house is a 3-bedroom ranch you bought 12 years ago, for $189,000. The mortgage has been gone for 3 years. Your neighbors think you're a guy who does okay, maybe works in insurance or IT. You've let them believe whatever's convenient. You've never corrected anyone, not because you're deceptive, but because correcting them would cost you something you're not willing to spend. What you've learned, slowly, is that visibility has a price that has nothing to do with money. The second people know what you have, they stop relating to you and start relating to what you have. A cousin you haven't heard from in 5 years finds a reason to text. Someone at a barbecue casually mentions a business idea they've always wanted to try, if only they had a little seed money. You've watched it happen to other people. You've watched money change the temperature of a room the moment it becomes visible. Nobody involved is a villain. It's just what money does to the air around it once people can see it. So you keep the air clean. The CR-V, the ranch house, the unfixed check engine light. It costs you nothing to maintain and it buys you something no amount of actual money can purchase, the ability to walk through your own life without becoming somebody's opportunity. Your best friend since high school is named Danny. He coached your kids' baseball team for 2 seasons even though his own son quit after 1. He drove 4 hours to help you move a couch once, no complaints, no keeping score. He is the kind of friend who calls on a Tuesday with no agenda, just to talk. 6 months ago, Danny called on a Tuesday, but there was something sitting underneath his voice. He'd been running a small HVAC repair company for 3 years, good reputation, steady referrals, the kind of business that was one step away from actually taking off. He wanted to buy a second van and hire 2 more technicians. He needed $38,000. You could have sent it before he finished the sentence. You could have transferred it from your phone standing in your driveway and never felt the difference, not even a flicker. $38,000 against your total holdings is roughly 6 weeks of passive income across your properties. It isn't a sacrifice. It isn't even a real decision financially. But you didn't send it. You sat there holding the phone, listening, feeling the specific weight of knowing exactly what you could do and choosing not to do it yet. That feeling doesn't have a clean name. It isn't guilt. It isn't withholding for the sake of withholding. It's something closer to responsibility, the kind that comes from having watched what happens when money lands on operations that aren't ready to hold it. Because here's what you've learned at some cost. Money handed to someone before the structure exists underneath it doesn't solve the problem. It just speeds up whatever problem was already there. If the books are messy, the money makes the mess bigger. If the owner doesn't understand margin versus revenue yet, the capital just buys a faster, more expensive version of the same lesson. So instead of sending the money, you asked Danny if you could come by his shop Saturday morning. You sat with him for 3 hours going through his numbers with a legal pad between you. You found 2 suppliers quietly overcharging him by comparison to standard rates. You asked about his insurance structure, his hourly billing versus his actual labor cost, what happens if a technician gets hurt on a job with the coverage he currently has. You went back the following Saturday. And the one after that. By the 4th Saturday, Danny had renegotiated one supplier contract, found a regional small business loan program through his state that fit his exact situation, and restructured his expansion, so it didn't need outside capital at all. He got approved for $30,000 through the program 6 weeks later. He called you the night he signed for the new van, and his voice cracked a little, the way voices do when something earned finally arrives. He said he couldn't have done it without you. You never told him what you could have simply handed over. You probably never will. That's not humility. It's just an understanding of what his story needed to be. His story, built from his decisions, owned by him in a way no check from you could have replicated. But there are rooms in your life nobody gets to walk into. That part doesn't get easier with time. Not the secrecy itself, you've made peace with that peace. It's the specific weight of watching someone you love struggle through something you could remove in under a minute, and knowing, fully, that removing it would be the wrong move. Sitting with that across a workbench for 4 Saturdays in a row. The email that changes the number arrives on a Wednesday, at 6:48 in the morning. You're standing in your garage looking for a specific wrench, half asleep, coffee still brewing inside. Priya's quarterly summary lands in your inbox, same 11-point font she's used for years, same dry formatting. You almost don't open it until the store errand. You open it anyway. Total verified net worth across all holdings, real property, business equity, and portfolio assets, $25.1 million. You stand there in the garage for a second. Somewhere down the street a lawnmower starts. A neighbor's dog barks twice and stops. Nobody knows. The lawnmower doesn't know. The wrench in your hand doesn't know. The number exists quietly on a phone screen in a garage that smells like motor oil, attached to a person who still hasn't found what he came out here looking for. This is the moment. Not a toast, not a phone call from someone telling you you've made it. Just a garage and a lawnmower 2 houses down, and a number that's been accumulating through 9 years of Saturday auctions and Tuesday phone calls and workbenches nobody photographed. You reply to Priya with 2 words, looks good. Then you find the wrench, finally, right where you'd already looked twice, and go back inside to finish your coffee before it gets cold. 9 years ago, you netted $2,200 selling 11 sealed appliances out of a storage unit you almost didn't bid on, And you sat with that number not knowing what to call the feeling it gave you. It wasn't pride. It wasn't disappointment either. It wasn't big enough to tell anyone. This is the same feeling. Exactly the same. Just with more zeros trailing behind it. That's not nothing. It might be everything, because it means the feeling was never about the number in the first place. It was about the architecture underneath it, the proof that something you built with your own hands could keep running without you watching it every hour, quietly, without applause, without anyone at the gym, or the barbecue, or the storage auction having the faintest idea. You back the car out of the garage. The lawnmower down the street is still going. Nothing about the outside of your life has changed in the last 4 minutes, and nothing will change tomorrow either. Dan's HVAC company will open at 8. Priya will email a follow-up question about next quarter. The laundromat's dryers will run whether or not you think about them today. What's different is quieter than any of that. Sometime this week, you're going to watch somebody spend real money trying to look like they have it. And you're going to notice, again, the thing you couldn't have put into words 9 years ago, that the performance of wealth and the architecture of it are almost never standing in the same room. Knowing that doesn't make Wednesday any easier. But it does make you wonder, quietly, on the drive to nowhere in particular, what you're actually building. And who, exactly, it's all for. None of this happens without that $19 book on your nightstand. The one that said stop wishing, start building the first domino. You still have it. Spine cracked. Corner folded on page 1. You never needed to finish the whole thing. Just that first page.